decades that I've been following this issue, I find that we are missing the point so often in the conversation. And what tends to happen is that we begin to blame the woman for staying. You got it really wrong. You got it really wrong. That's not where the issue is. What we hope to do today is to give you some information that allows you to see her situation more clearly, to perhaps better understand exactly what's going on in the mind of a woman who is being abused. And we're talking to two local experts on that today. I'd like to introduce them to you. We have with us from Bethany House, Deidre Lashley, who's the executive director of Bethany House. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I am very, very glad to have you here. And we have Sulaine Baldwin, who is the director of the YWCA Battered Women's Shelter.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming. I really appreciate this. So, people, if there is a silver lining in this Ray Rice scenario, it is that it has put this issue right smack in our faces once again, which I happen to appreciate, quite frankly. It's one of those issues that I think should never go away anyway. So Ray Rice put it right smack in our faces, and I think we have to take this opportunity to educate folks about what's really going on here. So you've heard lots and lots of things about Janae Rice. You've heard she's staying for the money. Why doesn't she just leave? You know, what's going on? She must really like it. What's really going on from your perspective? Why do women stay?
Deidre, would you like to address that first?
Sure.
Or?
I think women stay for many valid reasons, and I think it's hard for those of us on the outside to understand those reasons. But like many issues in life, you don't understand what kind of decisions you'll make unless you're in that position. And so for those of us trying to understand from the outside, it may seem like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But we have to take a look. I'm glad we have the opportunity to do this today, is to take a look at what's really going on, because it's not just about the physical violence. And domestic violence is something that happens behind closed doors, and obviously this situation is one where it's out in the open, and it's given us the opportunity to talk about it in more depth. But domestic violence is not just about the physical abuse, which is shocking, and what most people imagine are the black eyes and the emergency room visits, but it's about the power and control that abuser has over that victim in that relationship. It's financial control, it's control over the children, it's control over the kinds of activities the victim's allowed to be in. I've talked to so many survivors who were not allowed to work, not allowed to drive, not allowed to have access to their bank account, being threatened that the kids are going to get taken away from them if they try to leave, or they're going to be hunted down and killed.
But you hear those kinds of things, and then women always respond, "I wouldn't take that. He could never do that to me. I'd burn him up while he was asleep. I would, poison his food." Why aren't there more aggressive steps toward leaving? What happens?
Well, first of all, I want to say that when a woman leaves, that's the most dangerous time for her in an abusive relationship, is when she's making that choice to leave. Second of all,
Why is that?
Because the offender is losing that ultimate control over that victim. Because abusive behavior is about power and control. And they control all different aspects of their life, as Deidre was saying. When you're looking at a victim, they control what they do,
right.
Whether that is where they can go, when they can have contact with their family, how much money they have to spend, where they can drive a car, when they are going to be intimate, what kind of clothes they're going to wear. They have all different types of control over all different aspects of their lives, their children's lives.
And you know what, if I can interrupt for just a
Certainly.
moment, I think what people fail to understand is that this isn't necessarily some personality defect in that woman. This sort of control happens over a period of time, and it's often quite subtle.
Absolutely. And what we see in our profession is the very first thing that happens in an abusive relationship, again and again, when we interview the women that we work with, is the emotional abuse generally is the very first sign of abusive behavior that occurs first. So it is not generally a fist in the face.
Right.
It is not a push against a wall. It is not a knife held up against a throat. Those are the severe types of physical abuse that
Thank
occur.
you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that.
So that is why a woman stays, because it is so subtle at the beginning. And oftentimes it is a lack of education. It is this idea that, oh my gosh, sometimes even it can be flattering, because it seems like, well, he just
He
wants to
cares
be
me.
around
He
me.
cares about me. Yeah, you're right.
Oh my gosh,
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe he feels that way about me. He just wants to be around me.
Right, right.
And they don't understand that that's the beginning of isolation. That's the beginning of the jealousy.
Sure.
And
And
that's
I remember being in high school actually, and having a girlfriend who was being beaten by her boyfriend, and we were all of 16. And I said to her, I said, why does he hit you? Why do you let him hit you? And she said, because that's the way I know he loves me. We were 16. So some women grow with a deficit. They grow into their lives with a deficit of not having somebody to care for them, and thinking that caring means hit me. That's the way you show.
Often what we see is that abusers can abuse anyone. You don't have to have any sort of pathology to be a victim, because abusers will break you down. And it's that emotional abuse that does that in the beginning, and that jealousy and that sweeping you off your feet is so flattering. And what we see is that girls aged 16 to 21 are most at risk. So there's already a power differential between the abuser and the victim, because there's probably an age difference there, a lack of experience, and that sweeping you off your feet and telling you that you're the most important person in the whole world. And that jealousy does mean, that he does really care about me. It's flattering at first, but that becomes stifling and more and more and more controlling. And the people that would normally be a support to her and a resource to her start to be pulled away from her. So she becomes
Intentionally by him.
intentionally
By him.
And then the thing to keep in mind, then what is also being done at the same time is the name calling.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
And other forms of emotionally abusive behavior that create extremely low self-esteem. And then when other people are removed who are part of her former support system, and those people are no longer there to say, you know what, you don't deserve that. You should not put up with that.
Or give her the strength and resources to leave.
These
even.
things aren't right.
That's right. That aren't there.
She again falls into believing that she deserves that. She hears these things. She again believes that this is what is normal to her.
Yeah, when you listen to the conversation that Janae Rice has had publicly and around this issue, and you read that infamous tweet that she put out there that says, I love him, we're going to show you what love is really all about, you don't understand what goes on in our relationship. I mean, in so many ways, as I read that, I thought I was seeing very traditional signs of abuse. That denial that he does this because he loves me, that I can fix him, I can make him better. We've been together for a very long time, I can make him better.
I think that hope of I'm not a victim, I'm not a domestic violence victim, that's other people's
Right.
issues, that's not what's happening here, our situation is different. I think for victims and survivors of domestic violence, that it's so hard to face that.
Yeah.
That this is the situation that I'm in, that these patterns are really there. And I think what Sue said was really important, that the abuser is able to manipulate every incident of abuse, somehow able to manipulate it so that it's her fault. And so the survivor feels like, well, if I just did this differently, or if I just provide him this kind of support, things would be okay.
Right.
Or if he would just stop drinking or doing drugs, or if he wasn't under so much stress. There's always something to blame the abuse on. And I think, you know, for her to see that really clearly, that no, this is just really him
This is
abusing
really him.
me.
That's exactly right. And I've talked to women on the show, I've talked to women in my other life, in my other job, and who are in this situation. When you hear the discussion that they've had with their abuser over the years, you're like, this is coming right at you like a train, and you don't see it coming. The man who's saying to you, you're a bitch. You can't do anything right. Nobody wants you. You're ugly. Nobody's going to have you but me. And it's not as though they say that to you 24 hours a day, but the psyche is really far more fragile than we give it, than we will allow.
When
to be
we work
acknowledged.
with victims, and we have for years, I've been in this field almost 30 years, they repeatedly say, my bruises have healed, but what stays with me are the words.
Are the words. That's right.
Absolutely.
The words.
And
That's
I
right.
will tell you, when domestic violence offenders are being abusive, whether that is being physically abusive by, you know, punching, kicking, slapping, pulling hair, shoving, or by throwing things, any type of abusive behavior, Donnie, they're not owning that abusive
They're not owning
behavior.
it. You're absolutely right.
But they are making a choice. But what they do is they blame the victim. So what happens is that victim and their children feel responsible.
Absolutely. It's amazing dynamic. Hold that thought though. We're going to go away. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the important piece that separation violence plays in all of this. I want you to remember hashtag why she stays. I want you to go there. You're going to read some really, really interesting educational comments. We will be right back in just a moment. Stay with me.